Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, I pulled a story straight from the depths of Reddit. The kind of story that starts slow and then refuses to let go. It's unsettling, it's personal, and once you hear it, you won't forget it. So get comfortable, turn the lights down, and let's begin. Am I lying to my parents? The question didn't come from my parents. It came from the mirror. I was standing in the hallway of my apartment, staring at my reflection, practicing the everything is fine face I'd been wearing for 6 months. My parents were coming for dinner in 2 hours, and the air in the room felt like it was being pumped out by an industrial vacuum. Am I lying to them? Technically, no. I haven't told a single falsehood. I've just omitted the biggest, loudest truth of my life. I haven't told them that I quit the prestigious law firm they brag about at Sunday brunch. I haven't told them I've been spending my days in a dusty studio downtown, covered in clay and charcoal, trying to reclaim a version of myself they spent 20 years trying to bury. The momentum of a lie isn't in the words, it's in the maintenance. It's the way I hide my stained fingernails under the table. It's the way I program my phone to display work when my art mentor calls. It's a constant high-speed chase where I'm both the pursuer and the prey. The buzzer rang. My heart took a flying leap into my throat. They were early. They were always early. A trait my father called professional discipline, and I called tactical surveillance. I took one last look around the living room. I'd scrubbed it until it looked like a sterile hotel suite. No sketches, no clay dust, no evidence of a life lived outside the lines they'd drawn for me. I opened the door, and the force of their expectations hit me before they even crossed the threshold. "You look tired," my mother said, stepping in and immediately adjusting a picture frame on the wall. "That firm must be working you to the bone, but it'll be worth it when you make partner. It's a grind," I said, the words tasting like copper. I reached for their coats, my movement stiff. I saw the firm's quarterly newsletter. My father added, his voice booming in the small space. "Didn't see your name on the associate highlight list. I assume you're just working on something classified, something big." He looked at me, his eyes sharp and searching. The same eyes that used to check my report cards. For anything less than an A, the pressure in my chest tightened. The lie wasn't a wall anymore. It was a cage, and the bars were getting closer. Something like that. I muttered, heading toward the kitchen. "Drinks? I have that scotch you like, Dad." "Later," he said, walking toward my bookshelf. He reached for a heavy, leather-bound legal tome, one I bought at a thrift store, just to fill the space. "I want to hear about the merger, the one in the news. Your firm is lead counsel, right?" I froze, my hand on the refrigerator door. The momentum of the evening was already spiraling out of control. I didn't know anything about a merger. I knew about the way light hits a sculpture at 4 p.m. I knew the specific grit of stoneware clay. I didn't know the first thing about corporate law anymore. "I can't really talk about it, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "Non-disclosure agreements. You know, since when can't you talk?" "To your father?" he asked, turning around, the book heavy in his hand. He stepped into the kitchen, his presence filling the room. "You've been distant, kid. Your mother thinks it's the hours. I think it's something else." He set the book down on the counter right next to my hand. As he did, a small dried piece of gray clay stuck to the underside of the counter from this morning's frantic cleaning fell onto the granite. It sat there between us, a tiny, jagged piece of truth, staring us both in the face. My father stared at the gray pebble of clay on the counter. To anyone else, it was just dirt. To him, a man who viewed mess as a moral failing, it was a forensic anomaly. He reached out, his thick index finger pressing down on it until it crumbled into a fine, ghostly powder against the black granite. "What's this?" he asked, his voice low, the professional interrogator mode clicking into gear. "Doesn't look like kitchen dust. Looks like earth. just a bit of potting soil. I lied, the words coming out too fast, too sharp. I grabbed a dish towel and swiped the powder away, my heart hammering, a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I was repotting the ferns on the balcony. You know how I get. Since when you garden? My mother called from the living room. She appeared in the doorway, her eyes narrowing, as they swept over my pristine, lawyer-approved outfit. You used to hate getting your hands dirty. You used to say your hands were for signing contracts, not digging in the mud. People change, Mom, I said, moving to the stove. I needed the stove. I needed the noise of the vent hood and the sizzle of the steak to drown out the sound of my own internal panic. But the momentum of the house was against me as I reached for the tongs. A sharp, stinging pain shot through my palm. I'd forgotten about the blister, the deep, raw mark from 10 hours yesterday at the throwing wheel. I hissed and pulled my hand back, and my mother was on me in a second. She grabbed my wrist with a strength that surprised me. "Let me see," she demanded. She turned my hand over. The palm was a map of my true life, calluses at the base of my fingers, the raw blister in the center, a thin, stubborn line of blue charcoal etched into the crease of my thumb. It wasn't the hand of a woman who spent her days typing briefs. It was the hand of a laborer. "This isn't from gardening," she whispered, her eyes wide with dawning horror. "And it's certainly not from a keyboard." "What is this, Sarah? What have you been doing?" "It's just stress," I said, yanking my hand back. I've been going to a boxing gym to blow off steam. The firm is intense. I told you. My father didn't buy it. He walked past me, his footsteps heavy and deliberate, and headed straight for the hall closet, the one place I'd forgotten the lock. "The scotch is in here, right?" "No, Dad, wait." It was too late. He swung the door open, expecting coats and shoes. Instead, a tall, unfinished canvas, hidden behind the winter parkas, tipped forward. It hit the floor with a hollow thwack. A charcoal sketch of a human figure was revealed, raw, muscular, unfinished. Next to it, my bag of carving tools spilled out, sharp metal chisels clattering across the hardwood like a confession. The silence that followed was deafening. The vent hood roared. The stakes began to smoke. Neither of them moved. My father looked at the sketch, then at the tools, then at me. The disappointment on his face was a physical weight, a force that felt like it was crushing the air out of the room. "Where's the law, Sarah?" he asked, his voice trembling with quiet, dangerous rage. "Where's the firm? Where's the life we built for you?" "I built it, Dad," I said, my voice finally cracking. "You just drew the blueprint. But I'm the one who had to live in it." The buzzer rang again. Sharp, shrill. I looked at the intercom, my mind racing. I wasn't expecting anyone else. I hit the button, desperate for a distraction, but the voice that came through was the final nail in the coffin. "Hey, it's Marcus from the studio. You left your kiln keys in the locker. I'm downstairs. Can I just pop up?" My mother's hand went to her throat. My father's eyes turned to ice. The momentum of the lie had finally hit the wall, and the impact was going to be total. The silence in the kitchen was broken only by the shrill, persistent beep of the intercom. Marcus was waiting. The truth was vibrating at the door, and the air in the apartment felt like it was made of lead. "Don't let him up," my father said, his voice a jagged edge. "Tell him he has the wrong apartment. Tell him you don't know who Marcus is." "I can't do that, Dad," I said. My hand was already on the buzzer. My finger hovered over the button, the raw blister on my palm stinging, as if to remind me of the work I'd actually done. Because I do know him. He's the person who actually knows where I am every day. I pressed the button. The mechanical click of the door downstairs echoed through the hallway like a starter pistol. "You quit," my mother whispered, her eyes fixed on the charcoal sketch. On the floor, the six-figure salary, the health plan, the security. "You threw it all away to play with mud. I didn't throw it away, Mom. I traded it, I said, my voice gaining momentum I hadn't felt in months. The adrenaline was moving now, pushing me past the fear. I traded a slow death for a chance to actually breathe. You lied to us for 6 months, my father said, stepping into my space. His shadow loomed over the kitchen counter. Every phone call, every dinner, every time we told our friends how proud we were. It was a performance. You let us believe in a ghost. The elevator dinged. In the hallway, a moment later, there was a knock at the door. Casual, rhythmic, utterly oblivious to firestorm inside. I opened it. Marcus stood there, smelling of wood smoke and turpentine, holding a jingling set of keys. He looked at me, then past me, at the 2 people standing, like statues in my living room. He froze. "Oh," he said, his smile faltering. "I didn't realize you had company. The kiln is cooling, and I didn't want you to lose your slot for the firing tomorrow." "Firing?" my father asked, stepping forward. He didn't look at Marcus. He looked through him. "Is that what we're calling it now? Burning your future to the ground?" "Dad, stop," I said, but the force of his anger was already in motion. "I want to see it," my father said, grabbing his coat. "I want to see the studio. I want to see exactly what was so important that you had to treat your mother and me like enemies for half a year." "It's not for you to see," I said, but he was already out the door, moving with a grim, relentless purpose. He didn't wait for the elevator. He hit the stairs, his footsteps echoing like a drumbeat. My mother followed, her face a mask of grief. Marcus looked at me, wide-eyed. "Sarah, what's happening?" "The lie broke, Marcus," I said, grabbing my jacket. The dam finally broke. We ran after them, the descent through the stairwell, feeling like a fall into the unknown. I caught up to them at the curb, where my father was already hailing a cab. He didn't look at me as I climbed in behind him. The drive downtown was silent, the city lights blurring past the window in a smear of neon and shadow. When we reached the industrial district, the cab pulled up in front of a weathered brick building with tall, soot-stained windows. It looked nothing like the glass and steel towers of the law firm. It looked raw. It looked honest. My father stepped out of the car and stared at the building. "This is it," he said. "This is the partnership you were working on." "Yes," I said, walking to the heavy steel door and sliding my key into the lock. The momentum of the night had brought us here, to the one place where I couldn't hide. As the door swung open, the smell of damp earth and oil hit us, thick, primal, filling the lungs. I led them down the hall, to the back corner, to my space. The lights flickered on, revealing the truth in all its messy, unvarnished glory. Half-finished sculptures on the pedestals, sketches pinned to every inch of the walls. The large kiln in the corner, humming with a low, industrial heat, a workshop of a life reborn. My father walked to the center of the room. He reached out and touched a bust I'd been working on for weeks, a likeness of a man struggling to break free from a block of stone. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he looked at his hand. It was covered in fine gray dust. "Am I lying to you?" I asked, my voice echoing in the vast, empty space. "Or am I finally showing you the person you were always too afraid to see?" The kiln hummed in the corner, a steady, low-frequency vibration that felt like the heartbeat of the room. My father didn't pull his hand away from the gray dust. He stared at the bust, the man half submerged in stone, and I saw his jaw tighten. The momentum of his anger had hit a wall of cold reality. He wasn't looking at a hobby. He was looking at a transformation. "You think this is freedom?" he asked, his voice echoing off the brick. "This is a struggle, Sarah. You've traded a life of influence for a life of manual labor. You're back at the starting line." "I was never in a race, Dad," I said, stepping into the center of the studio. I was just a passenger. In the car you were driving. I'm finally the one behind the wheel, even if I'm driving through the mud. My mother walked to the wall, covered in sketches. She didn't look at the muscular figures or the abstract shapes. She looked at a small, delicate drawing, tucked in the corner, a sketch of the two of them, sitting on their porch back home, looking small and fragile. She touched the paper with a trembling finger. "You've been coming here every day," she whispered, "while we were calling you, checking in, thinking you were safe in an office. You were here, thinking about us. I was trying to find a way to tell you," I said, but the longer I waited, the heavier the truth got. I felt like if I told you, before I had something to show for it, you just see it as a failure. I wanted to prove I was good at this first. Success isn't about being good at something, Sarah. My father snapped, turning to face me. It's about being secure. It's about not having to worry if the roof is going to hold up. The roof is holding up, I said, pointing to the ledger on my workbench. I've sold 3 pieces this month. I'm teaching classes. It's not a law firm salary, but I own every second of my time. Can you say the same? You've spent 30 years doing a job you hate just to keep a roof over a house you're never in. The silence that followed was a different kind of heavy. It wasn't the silence of a lie. It was the silence of a mirror. My father looked around. The dusty, cold studio. For a split second, the interrogator mask cracked. He looked tired. Not the tired of a long day, but the tired of a long life. Lived for other people. "We just wanted you to be safe," he said, his voice losing its jagged edge. "The world is a hard place. We didn't want it to break you. It was already breaking me, Dad. The lie was the thing, doing the damage." I walked over to the kiln and checked the temperature gauge. The heat was rising. Tomorrow, the clay would turn to stone. The shapes I'd labored over would become permanent. It felt like a metaphor for the night. The secrets were burned off, leaving only the raw, hardened reality of who we were to each other. "So what happens now?" My mother asked. "Do we just go back to the apartment and eat cold steak?" "No," I said. I grabbed a spare stool and pulled it toward the center of the room. "The steak is ruined, but if you want to stay, I can show you how the kiln works. I can show you what I'm working on next." My father looked at the stool, then at the door. The exit was right there. He could walk out, keep his disappointment, and maintain the wall between us. He stood there for a long moment, the momentum of his pride, warring with the truth of my happiness. Then he sat down. He didn't smile. He didn't apologize. He just looked at the bust and pointed to the man's shoulder. "The anatomy is a bit off there," he grumbled. "A man under that much pressure would have more tension in the deltoid." I felt a sudden, sharp sting in my eyes, not from the dust, but from the first bridge being built across the gap. "Show me," I said, handing him a carving tool. The lie was over. The performance was finest. Head, as we sat in the dim light of the studio, surrounded by the scent of earth and the hum of the heat, I realized something. The truth doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it just brings a different kind of work. But as I watched my father's dusty hand hover over the clay, I knew it was the only work that mattered. The secrets are out, and the real work begins. If you've ever had to break your parents' hearts to save your own soul, you know exactly how Sarah feels. Have you ever lived a double life? Tell us about it in the comments. Like and subscribe for more stories about the high price of being yourself. Until next time, keep your hands dirty and your heart open.